Hey everybody, you know who it is, your boy Wax Candle, coming at you from Community News 103. Like, share, and subscribe, Community News 103. Today's topic we'll be talking about Chauncy Billips and Jason Kidd hire over the female candidate Becky Hammond. First of all, Becky Hammond, who is an assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs, she will be hired. She will be hired very soon. And my issue is with all the black NBA coaches is how long they had to fight. Just like, for instance, right now, it's only 4 black coaches in the whole league. But this female, she's gonna start a whole new process of hiring white female coaches. Not black female coaches, but white female coaches. And my second argument is, why are they bringing up the past of Jason Kidd and Chauncy Billips? I mean, Chauncy Billips was 19 years old when his sexually assault case came up. And Jason Kidd pleaded guilty to battery of his wife, which happened, I believe, 2001. But they goes on and on into the depth of these guys off-court antics, and they go very deep into the sexual assault case that happened with Chauncy Billips in 1997. So here's a audio clip of them going into depth and how they go into details on the case, which they never do this with other athletes or sportcasters.
Billups. Now, according to sources of our Adrian Wojnarowski, the deal is for 5 years with the former LA Clippers assistant that includes a team option on the last season. Now, Billups had an illustrious career in the NBA, winning the 2004 NBA title with the Pistons in the Finals MVP award. A 5-time All-Star, he's the only player with a winning record against Michael Jordan, Kobe, and also LeBron. Now, along with Billups' hire, Jason Kidd was named the head coach of the Mavericks last Thursday. Now, both have amazing resumes. However, off-court issues have led to questions surrounding their hires. In 2001, Kidd was arrested for suspicion of hitting his wife and pleaded guilty to spousal abuse. Then in 2012, he also pleaded guilty to a DUI. Billups, on the other hand, settled a civil case in 1997 when a woman alleged that he and his former teammate Ron Mercer raped her. Criminal charges were never filed, but according to police reports, a rape kit examination displayed injuries consistent with sexual assault. The Blazers have looked into the matter again before hiring Billups, and they were able to not really draw up anything new. But Perk, you got to look at all of these factors. Are these hires a bad look for the league, would you say?
So her question was, is it a bad look for the league for 2 black coaches who was involved with sexual scandals to be hired as head coaches, when many others have been involved with different types of sexual scandals and they was rehired by the league? And Marv Albert is an example. Why would the NBA come out and say this is a bad look to the league for Jason Kidd and Chauncy Billups to be hired as head coaches, when many people have been involved with sexual scandals, drug scandals, and all the above, and they're back in the league?
This is Marv Albert. You probably recognize him by his famous voice. He's been working in radio, television, and broadcasting for over 50 years by now, and nowadays he's usually the main play-by-play announcer for NBA games on TNT. But there was something that happened a long time ago that really damaged Marv Albert's reputation, and up until today, some people are still shocked that he even has his job. He was also an incredibly popular figure. Even if you didn't watch basketball, you knew who Marv Albert was because his voice was everywhere. As of now, he's made a total of 126 appearances on The David Letterman Show, and he also appeared on numerous TV shows and movies, including The Simpsons. That's how well known he was during that time. Unfortunately, around September of 1997, Marv Albert's name was all over the news again, but this time, it was not a good thing. A 42-year-old woman named Vanessa Perhach accused Marv Albert of throwing her on a bed in a hotel room, biting her on the back and neck over a dozen times, and also forced her to perform oral sex. Yikes. Initially, Marv tried to deny everything and said that Vanessa was lying, but after a couple of DNA tests were performed and the investigators found out that genetic material from the bite marks were from Marv, and that his semen was on Vanessa's underwear, yeah, there was no getting out of that. Anyway, during the trial, there was a testimony from another woman named Patricia Marsden, and she stated that a few years ago in 1993 and 1994, Marv Albert also bit her on 2 different occasions. Patricia also claimed that Marv invited her to his hotel room and apparently she saw him dressed up in white panties with a garter belt. And while dressed like that, he tried to make sexual advances towards her. Jeez, that's pretty damn weird. Marv was also engaged at this time, so he would show up to the trials with his fiancée, who had to hear all of this too. Eventually, he would confess and admit that he did do everything he was accused of, and subsequently, he would, of course, get fired by NBC. Marv pled guilty to assault and battery and had to serve a 12-month suspended sentence, which means if he doesn't break the law during that 12 months, then he'd be free to go. And that's what happened. Marv stayed out of the public for 12 months, and that was it. He didn't have to go to jail or serve any time at all. Now, normally, if you're a huge, popular public figure like Marv Albert, and you get into a huge scandal like this, your entire image and public perception would be damaged. But less than 2 years later, Marv was back in the business. TNT hired him in 1999 to be their play-by-play announcer, and then in 2000, NBC, the company that fired him a few years ago, rehired him. Part of the reason he was able to get his job back just 2 or 3 years after the scandal was because he had a lot of friends in the industry. With a blink of an eye, this whole sexual assault scandal was swept under the rug.
Sex scandal was swept under the rug, and 2, fast forward to today, people are wondering why they're questioning Chauncy Billips and Jason Kidd, 2 black coaches being hired who had minor sexual scandals, but they are questioning, is this a bad look for the NBA? Here's Dominique Foxworthy of ESPN, a black analyst, going in on Chauncy Billups and Jason Kidd.
Need to continue paying a price for something they've been accused of or pled guilty to in Jason Kidd's case years ago doesn't mean that they can never rebound from that, but we do have to acknowledge it. And it's a story that whether it comes out now or comes out later or came out earlier, it's a story that's not going to go away. Like, it's going to stick with these guys for their entire careers. And I think I had a group text about this situation with a couple friends of mine over the week, and one of the things that came out of that I think was important and we should highlight.
Stick with these guys their entire careers. Why some people sexual scandals are stuck with them their entire careers and some are swept under the rug.
Commits a crime or is accused of a crime, like there should be a process that we go through, which includes finding out or determining whether they are guilty or innocent, and then it also includes some punishment. And then when you come back from that punishment, then you are allowed to re-enter society and you're allowed to work again. It doesn't mean that you should be the head coach of a team or general manager of a team, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be. But all those things need to take place, and I don't think that's a failing of the NBA. That's a failing of our judicial system more than anything else. But it does, I mean, to get back to the original question, it does look bad today to have that as one of the headlines. They didn't get the job because we fell back and we weren't critical of them. It's a whole nother conversation, but I'm with you on the point that you're making. Like, it's uncomfortable for all of us, and it is a bad look for the league.
Yeah, I actually have to agree with Dominique. I do think it's a bad look for the league. I think as far as the optics are concerned, I mean, I know that they did re-delve into that investigation and, tried to figure out what they could, didn't find anything else, and decided that at the end of the day it was more important to hire Chauncy as their head coach than anything else. So they went with that decision. But it also makes me wonder how serious they actually were about hiring Becky Hammon, because you talk about optics. Sometimes you have to wonder if teams really just oh, say Becky's a finalist just for the fact that, oh, this would make us look good to show that we're actually considering hiring a woman as our head coach? Were they actually really? I have no idea, but this makes me question that and really, truly wonder about it.
So since Becky Hammond, the assistant coach for the Spurs, wasn't hired and 2 black men was hired, now the 2 black men are a bad look for the league because they had sexual scandals. But look at the many other sexual scandals and drug scandals that has been in the league. The NBA is pushing for the first white female head coach. Then the minority doors will open. Then they can put in a LGBT head coach. So this is the agenda. First, let's listen to Kendrick Perkins' view on Chauncy Billips and Jason Kidd.
No, it's not. You know, it's a bad look in the NBA to be writing these articles at this time. That's what's a bad look. Because guess what? When Jason Kidd and Chauncy Billips, when they were the product and they were put on the shelves and they were selling out and they were making money and they were around here delivering championships and making all-star games and selling out jerseys and signing autographs, everything was all fine and dandy when you were the product.
Good job, Kendrick Perkins, for sprinkling some Momma'S cooking and some good seasoning on the Chauncy Billips and Jason Kidd situation. And shout out to Kwame Brown.
As soon as African Americans can take that leap and get in place of power, this is when it all starts to come out. This is when these writers want to start bringing up people past, like everyone don't have a damn past. I'm pretty sure we all have something that we done when we were younger that we wouldn't do again.
Here's another sexual scandal case involving an NFL player, Ben Roethlisberger. He was charged with rape on 2 counts. Here's another example of sexual assault. Big Ben Roethlisberger in 2009 assaulted Andrea Minotti, employee of Harrah's Hotel in Lake Tahoe. She accused Roethlisberger of rape. As Fox News reported, she alleged the assault took place in the hotel room in 2008 after he asked her to help him fix his TV. And she experienced depression after the assault, and she eventually entered a mental health institution. But Mr. Roethlisberger was reinstated in the league after serving only a 4-game suspension. This was not a bad look for the NFL. Mr. Roethlisberger had a 6-game suspension, but they let him back within 4 games. You can look at some of the itinerary on your screen and read about all the complications of the case. Unfortunately, this was just the first victim. Mr. Roethlisberger had another run-in with a 20-year-old college student after he settled this case in civil court after 4 years.
You'll remember back in March, a college student claimed that Roethlisberger assaulted her in a Georgia bar. The charges were later dropped, and now for the first time, we are hearing from his accuser and videotapes made during police interviews with her the day after that incident.
This newly released cell phone video shows Ben Roethlisberger the night of the alleged sexual assault buying shots for the group of young women he had just met. He and his 20-year-old accuser posed together, smiling.
So we took pictures with him. He seemed really nice at first.
But later that night, she and her friends ran into the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback again at another club. According to her, this time things took an ugly turn.
One of his bodyguards came and didn't grab my arm, but was like, "Hey, come here." Took me to this back hallway.
The woman, who admitted later she was drunk, says the 6'5", 240-pound Roethlisberger came into the hallway, exposing himself, and then forced himself on her in this bathroom.
He followed me in and shut the door. That's when he proceeded to have sex with me, and the whole time I said, "No, we really don't need to do this. This isn't okay. We shouldn't be doing this." then he just like got up and left.
She said she was afraid to fight back because she had noticed that Roethlisberger had what she called a short temper.
I didn't want to fight him, but the whole time I was like, this isn't okay. No, we don't need to do this. He said it is okay.
But criminal charges against Roethlisberger were dismissed after the woman refused to cooperate to avoid what her lawyer called a very intrusive personal experience.
The victim in this case is critical. There would be no way to be able to prove this case without the victim's cooperation.
The National Football League suspended Roethlisberger for 6 games. He rejoined the Steelers for preseason practice just last week. Last night, in one of his first one-on-one interviews since the rape case on WTAE in Pittsburgh, he apologized to his fans.
And Roethlisberger is still facing another sexual assault charge and a civil suit by a Las Vegas woman. The Steelers quarterback had been hoping to have his 6-game suspension reduced. That is now very unlikely with the release of the tapes that very graphically describe the Georgia woman's version of what happened in the bar that night.
And why are these tapes released since prosecutors have declined to prosecute them?
Well, Georgia is one of the few states where the evidence, even including the interviews, the videotape interviews, are released so the public can decide whether the system worked and did the right thing.
Being Roethlisberger, he went on to lead the Steelers to the Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers that year after serving only 4 games of a 6-game suspension. So now you see why it's the NBA bringing this up now when there have been so many other players who have sexual assault cases who came back into the league. Now in Jason Kidd's case, he was never charged with rape. He pled guilty to spousal abuse and a DWI charge. But now it's all these questions that his reputation and everything he's done in the NBA, because of this, it's a bad look to the NBA.
Like, I don't think it's disrespectful to Becky Hammon or disrespectful to anybody. I just think it's a bad look. And whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. It's about the optics of the situation. The question is, does it look good or does it look bad? It looks bad for a league that prides itself on being progressive to have a woman in the running for the job, whether she deserved it or not. I'm sure she deserves to be a head coach at some point. It looks bad to deny a woman a job and then hire 2 men who are being accused of violent acts against women. Like, it looks bad. It doesn't mean that.
Of Marv Abbott, a Hall of Fame announcer who was accused of rape, sodomizing, dressing like a woman, wearing woman underwear, biting women. He was accused of all these things and pled guilty to it. But he got a job back in the NBA, and I think they put him in the Hall of Fame for announcers.
Yeah, I think that it's a different question of whether they should get the jobs or if it's a bad look. Like, I do think it's a bad look because particularly in Chauncy's case, he was up against Becky Hammon, and it's a particularly bad look for the NBA, which is considered the most progressive major sports league that we have, at least major men's sports league that we have in this country. And for them to, and for 2 hires of women, of guys who have been accused of mistreating women or sexually assaulting or hitting women, for them to get hired and Becky Hammon not to get hired, I don't see how we can argue that it's not a good look.
As soon as African Americans can take that leap and get in place of power, this is when it all starts to come out. This is when these writers want to start bringing up people past. Like, everyone don't have a damn past. I'm pretty sure we all have something that we done when we were younger that we wouldn't do again. Now, I get it. If with Jason Kidd's situation, if he was a repeated offender, and it was something that he was doing time and time again, okay, I can see that. But this man has grown from that. Chauncy Billips wasn't accused of anything, no criminal charges. Let it go.
So people get away with a lot of horrendous things. It's not who you are or what you know, it's who you know. Do you think Chauncy Billips and Jason Kidd should be hired, even though they had sexual scandals? As I shown and proved to you, there have been other players who had sexual scandals and went on to play their sport. So what do you think about this situation? Like, subscribe, and share. Community News 103. Thank you.